The Netherlands may be a small country, but the Dutch are known for many things. Cheese, tulips, windmills, and being the tallest people in the world. But what you may not know is that the Netherlands also consistently ranks as one of the happiest countries on earth. And it isn't just stroopwafels, Dudok apple pie, and frikandellen fueling that happiness. So what is it? As a Dutchie myself, I'd say in part it's due to things like affordable healthcare and education, but there are also everyday habits that Dutch people do to keep life simple, stress-free and balanced. So today I'm sharing 5 of those Dutch habits that simplify life in ways you might not expect. And spoiler alert, one of them might just change how you interact with the people around you. Onthaasten. Simplifying your life begins with doing less. Sometimes it's hard to switch yourself off. The adrenaline of staying busy and always being on the go can feel good. But we also need time to recharge. That is where onthaasten comes in. What is onthaasten? The verb haasten means to rush or to hurry. And ont is like the prefix on in English. So onthaasten literally translates to unrush or unhurry. It means to consciously slow down. The goal of onthaasten is to find a healthy balance between work and relaxation. By keeping things simple, you can better handle the stress and pressures of daily life, enjoy the little moments, and focus on what truly matters. Eating fries with mayonnaise. Lots of it. Jokes aside, there are many ways to practice onthaasten. Not setting your alarm on the weekend, watering your plants, or niksen, which means consciously taking time to do nothing, like sitting on the sofa with a cup of coffee or tea for 5 to 10 minutes without a phone or book, and letting your mind wander. En throughout the week, even een momentje voor jezelf pakken. Taking a moment for yourself. The term onthaasten is relatively new. It was coined in 1997 by Margreet de Boer, who was the Dutch Minister of Housing and Spatial Planning at the time, and it has since gained popularity. We live in a performance-driven society obsessed with speed and doing more in less time. And don't get me wrong, speed is great. Nobody would watch the 100-meter sprint at the Olympics if all the athletes were just jogging. And you wouldn't be able to watch this video without fast internet. But life is about balance. Take red wine for example. Served too warm, it tastes sloppy and the alcohol becomes overpowering. Serve it too cold and the aromas and flavors are muted. It tastes at its best when served between about 12 to 18 degrees Celsius or 54 to 64 degrees Fahrenheit. It's the same with life. Life can feel sluggish if you do everything at a snail's pace. But going full speed all the time also isn't sustainable. Onthaasten is a way to recenter, to recalibrate if the pendulum has swung too far to the fast side. I love how the Dutch philosopher Arnold Cornelis put it. You shouldn't start running faster just because time speeds up. The only right response to the acceleration of today's world is to slow down inwardly. Otherwise, you'll lose control. That's onthaasten. It's about being lazy, pausing time and embracing simplicity, without guilt. Not only does this lead to a more enjoyable life, but it can also boost your productivity. When you're not always on, your mind is clearer and you work more effectively. Hoe kan jij je leven meer onthaasten? How can you unrush your life? You can start by taking little breaks throughout the day. Just 5 minutes here and there can make a real difference. Just make sure you don't spend that time scrolling TikTok or checking your emails. Do something that really recharges you. You could drink some water, take a few conscious breaths, practice niksen, or go outside for a short walk if you have more time. Or you can invite a few friends over for dinner and deep conversation. And this is also the perfect time to try out that new recipe that you've been meaning to make. Or do fewer things and prioritize activities that require patience. This helps you slow down and be more intentional. As we say in Dutch, als je iets doet, doe het dan goed. If you're going to do something, do it right. That's also the approach I'm taking to learning Spanish. I don't live in the Netherlands anymore, I actually live in Spain now. Learning a few words of Spanish here and there, like hola, amigo, buenos dias, buenas tardes, it wasn't really getting me anywhere. I needed a more structured approach. And for that, I take classes with Lingoda, an online language school and the sponsor of today's video. What I like about Lingoda is that the focus of the classes is on speaking, because that's why I want to learn Spanish, to be able to have conversations. La imagen 5 es la playa y la imagen 6. La imagen 5 es la playa y la imagen 6 es el guacamole. The teachers, who are all real people by the way, not some AI bot, are all native level speakers and the classes are completely in Spanish. And there are never more than 5 students per class, and in the classes I've attended, it's always been fewer. So there's lots of opportunity to practice speaking, and I always feel supported in class. And if you want, you can also book private classes, which are one-on-one. And it's not just Spanish, they also offer French, German, Italian and English of course. Last year I did a 2-week, 20 hours per week in-person intensive Spanish program, and that just wasn't for me. It was too demanding, and I didn't get much work done during those weeks. What I like about Lingoda is that I can pick and choose classes based on how I feel and what fits my schedule, because classes are available 24/7. And when the class is done, I get personalized feedback from the teacher, which has been incredibly helpful in improving my pronunciation. Lingoda now offers a language sprint challenge where you do 30 classes in 60 days, or 60 classes in 60 days if you want to do the super sprint. I'm considering it because daily practice is the best way to level up my Spanish fast. And what's great is that if you successfully finish the sprint, you get 50% cash back or 30 class credits. So if you're interested in learning a new language, I'd recommend Lingoda. And if you use the link in the description or my code PeterCook20, you'll get €20 off. Thanks Lingoda for sponsoring today's video. Cycling. Did you know that the Netherlands is the only country in the world with more bicycles than people? There are approximately 23 million bicycles for nearly 18 million residents. And the number could have been even higher. There's a long-running joke, all shared in good humor, where a Dutch person may ask a German, "When are you going to return my bike?" This refers to the bicycles confiscated by the Germans during World War II that were never returned. The average Dutch person gets plenty of cardio exercise simply by biking from place to place. Cycling is a great way to stay healthy without even trying. Bicycles also simplify life. Cycling is easy in the Netherlands because the country is heavily urbanized and extremely flat. People use bikes for everything: commuting to work, running errands, visiting friends, or heading to football or hockey practice. In major cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam and Utrecht, biking is the primary mode of transportation. It's often the fastest way to get from A to B. Biking is also affordable. Unlike cars, bicycles are accessible to almost everyone. The only downside is the frequent rain. But we are made of sugar, and with a regenpak, a rain suit from the HEMA, you're always good to go. Kids in the Netherlands learn to cycle at a very young age, typically around 4 to 5 years old. And they start with bike helmets and training wheels that look really cute, but it doesn't take long for them to confidently ride without either. And Dutch people are so confident on their bikes, they frown upon wearing bike helmets. Compared to many other countries, cycling in the Netherlands is remarkably safe. While there are challenges, especially with the growing popularity of e-bikes and fat bikes, what happened to Casey Neistat in New York City is unthinkable here. There's great infrastructure with bike lanes everywhere, bicycle traffic lights and bicycle traffic signs. What also makes a big difference, in my opinion, is that almost every car driver in the Netherlands is also a cyclist. This dual perspective fosters empathy for cyclists, unlike in some other countries where it can feel like a car versus bike dynamic. The most dangerous thing about riding a bike in the Netherlands is probably dodging tourists in Amsterdam. If you're visiting, please watch out for cyclists before crossing the road. I've personally had more than a few near collisions with the tourists who just crossed the road without looking, and it probably shaved a couple of years of my life expectancy. Parking your bike in the Netherlands is mostly free. You'll see bikes parked on the streets everywhere. In cities, there are even free bicycle parking garages, which help keep bikes safe and reduce clutter in the city center. Cycling is so ingrained in Dutch culture that even the royal family is occasionally photographed riding bikes, as if to say, "We're just like you. We're normal." I love getting around on a bike, the freedom of being able to go anywhere in the city quickly. And I always feel refreshed after I get home from a bike ride. So, how can you apply this to simplify your life? Choose your car over your bike more often. Cycling isn't just good for your physical health, it's also great for your mental health. We have a concept called uitwaaien, which means going out into the wind to get fresh air and clear your mind, or blowing away the cobwebs, as the English say. Cycling is perfect for that. And if you don't have a bike, go for a walk instead. Walking offers many of the same benefits. In Dutch we call it even een frisse neus halen, which translates to fetching a fresh nose. Being open-minded. Being open-minded is a powerful way to simplify your life. Holding on to rigid beliefs and expectations often leads to stress and mental clutter because, let's face it, you can't control everything around you. When you're open-minded, you approach life with flexibility. You allow things to unfold naturally rather than resisting them. The average Dutch person is known for being open-minded. While what you see on the news might suggest this is changing, and I'm sure I'll get a few comments about this, the people I know and meet, my family and friends, still embody this trait. They might not agree with you, and since we're so famously direct, they may tell you why, but they will respect your freedom of choice. Of course, that respect does have its limits, especially if you use that freedom to push intolerant views onto others. Not everyone does everything in the same way. There's no one-size-fits-all cookie-cutter definition of a Dutch person. I'm sharing my personal perspective here, and that goes for all the habits in this video. But as we say in Dutch, de uitzondering bevestigt de regel. The exception proves the rule. And generally speaking, the Netherlands has a culture of live and let live and a long history of tolerance. The Dutch embraced religious tolerance in the 16th century, allowing diverse groups, including Jews, to practice their faith freely. In 2001, we became the first country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage. The Netherlands also pioneered the legalization of euthanasia in 2002, under strict conditions. And you're probably familiar with our open-minded approach to soft drug use. Being open-minded doesn't mean agreeing with everything or staying silent when you disagree. It's about creating space for different perspectives, even ones you don't share. This openness can expand your worldview and make your life richer, as you're not confined to a box of fixed ideas. You're free to explore what resonates with you, and that simplifies decision-making. Open-mindedness also makes life simpler because you can let go of the need to have all the answers. You can be more authentic and present and focus on the things that truly matter to you while spending less time on the things that don't align with your values. So how can you apply this? If life feels overwhelming, try being a little more open-minded. Release the need to control everything and embrace the flow. This doesn't mean changing who you are. It means creating space to breathe, live, and simplify your life. And if you'd like more tips on this, I write a newsletter about how to bring more calm into your life and live with more intention. If that sounds interesting, there's a sign-up link in the description below. Direct communication. In the Netherlands, people tend to say what they mean without sugarcoating their words. To foreigners, this directness can sometimes come across as rude. But being polite is as important in the Netherlands as it is in other cultures. Maybe it's just defined differently. Directness is no excuse for being rude. If you call someone fat, that is as offensive here as it is anywhere else. But with that said, we prefer to keep things simple and be clear about what we mean. We're recht door zee, straightforward in our communication. This directness has deep roots in Dutch history. Since half the country is below sea level, the Dutch had to work together to combat this common threat. Farmers, nobles, and townspeople alike had to collaborate to build dikes and keep their feet dry. This could only be achieved by valuing everyone's input equally, regardless of their origin or social status. That culture of collaboration is alive today. You can see it in politics, where coalitions of 3 or 4 parties are needed to form a majority government. And in the workplace, many companies operate with horizontal hierarchies and informal cultures. It's not uncommon for an employee to knock on their boss's door to discuss something important. I did this regularly when I worked as a lawyer. There's even a name for the Dutch method of consensus decision-making, poldermodel, where government, companies, social organizations, and other stakeholders consult and reach agreement on issues of general interest. Well, that term was more popular in the 1980s and 90s and isn't used as much anymore. Well, consensus only works if everyone is willing to be direct and clear about their intentions. At least that's how the Dutch see it. To a Dutch person, being direct is a form of respect. Honesty and transparency are ways to value others' time and avoid misunderstandings. Communication is clear and to the point, no fluff. This makes interactions smoother. People know what to expect from you. You don't need to read between the lines. Years ago, I briefly dated an American girl. One time we were at this social gathering where this man was telling this incredibly boring story. But she said, "Oh, that's so interesting." So afterward, I asked her, "Did you really find that interesting?" And she said, yeah, she definitely didn't. I was confused. Why would you say something is interesting if you feel the opposite? I've since learned a lot about how cultural differences shape social behavior. Having lived abroad for over a decade, I've gained perspective. But even though you can take the Dutchie out of the Netherlands, you can't take the Netherlands out of the Dutchie. I understand not wanting to tell someone they're boring to their face. That would also be rude in the Netherlands. But saying the exact opposite felt dishonest to me. I get the politeness argument, you don't want to offend someone. But isn't it also impolite to lie? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. For Dutch people, the tricky part about speaking English is figuring out what the other person really means. Just because we're both speaking English doesn't mean we're always on the same page. An American or a Brit might say, "Oh, we should totally come over for dinner sometime." To which a Dutch person might say, "Well, how about next Tuesday?" But the American or Brit may just have said that to be polite and didn't actually mean it. I think this is where the idea comes from that Dutch people can see Americans as fake. I've heard this from Dutch people more than once.
When it comes to like stereotypes, what are some of the stereotypes that the Dutch people have about Americans?
That Americans are like fake.
They're fake?
Yes, they're fake because they are extremely polite, which in Holland they are not. so that actually, it can be like, hey, is it meant like that? You know?
And another thing they really say a lot is they're fake.
They're fake?
Yeah, that's what they say.
What do you mean they're fake? In regards to what?
That's what the Dutch people say about, oh yeah, the Americans are always so fake. They're always smiling and so cheerful.
So if you're American, please don't click away. Let me explain. It's a cultural difference. When I went to a supermarket in the US for the first time, the cashier asked me, "How are you?" I was confused because in the Netherlands, the cashier would just say hello. So I was like, why doesn't she just say hello? Why is she asking me how I am? Is she really interested in how I am? I didn't know how to respond. Eventually, I learned to just say, "I'm great, how are you?" But the whole exchange just felt empty, fake. Americans also use superlatives more than Dutch people. For a Dutch person to call something amazing, it has to be something truly extraordinary, like that wedding day or a 2-week trip to the Maldives. Or in my case, it would have been getting tickets to see Oasis reunite at Wembley. But unfortunately, I wasn't able to get tickets. I was number 526,000, I believe, in the queue. So when an American calls their cappuccino amazing, or they get all loud and say, "Oh my God, that's so cool," a Dutch person may think, just act normal and be yourself. There's no need to put up a show. The Dutch prefer to stay grounded. Except on King's Day or when watching football games. That's when everyone can go crazy. But there's another side of wanting to be nuchter or down to earth. The Dutch can sometimes be negative or complain a lot, which might explain why they think Americans' enthusiasm about something mundane is a bit fake, because it's not how they will react. But I appreciate the friendly, positive attitude that a lot of Americans have, and I think some Dutch people could definitely learn from that. I like how Dutch Directness simplifies life. There's no need to overthink conversations, everyone just wants to be efficient. But that doesn't mean bluntness is okay, and I think sometimes Dutch people can get the two confused. However, when directness and kindness go hand in hand, life becomes simpler. You don't need to tiptoe around hot topics, you can just be open and clear. Dutch people are essentially TLDR in real life. So how can you apply Dutch Directness to your own life? If you really want something or dislike something, be clear about it. Just don't be rude, say it kindly. Don't be like the French person who once told me that the Dutch language sounds barbaric. Even though I can be direct myself, that just felt rude. I know our language isn't the most romantic to listen to, but there's no need to rub it in. And be mindful when you invite a Dutch person for dinner just to be polite, because you might get an invite for real the next day. Work to live, don't live to work. The Dutch place high value on work-life balance. We have a saying, "Ik werk om te leven, ik leef niet om te werken," which translates as, I work to live, I don't live to work. In the Netherlands, your worth isn't defined by your job or your academic achievements. Life is about more than having a career or earning money. Work matters, but so do relationships with your family and friends, and having time for other things like your hobbies, sports, and gezelligheid. It starts in school. It's normal to be average in school. There's even a term for it, zesjescultuur or sixes culture, which is the tendency to do just enough to get by. In high school and university, all you need is a 6 out of 10 to pass an exam. I actually only need a 5.5 because that gets rounded up to a 6. In Dutch we say, waarom moeilijk doen als het makkelijk kan? Why make things difficult when they can be easy? This doesn't mean high achievements are discouraged. Good grades are important, especially when applying for a job. I wouldn't have landed my job as a lawyer at a big firm if I had only 6s on my exams. But overall, the emphasis is on the idea that you don't have to be at the top of your class to be a competent and valuable person. You're not a failure if you don't have perfect grades. Students don't choose a university just because it's the best one. Instead, they consider other factors like the vibe of the city, whether it's gezellig, the nightlife, and whether they can find a room. That's also how I picked my university in Groningen. I went to a couple of open days in Leiden and Rotterdam, but ultimately decided to go to Groningen because I immediately fell in love with the city. Once you enter the workforce, you're expected to do the work assigned to you. But in most Dutch workplaces, the atmosphere isn't overly competitive. The Dutch prefer a balanced, healthy work culture. It's okay to be average, to be normaal. As we say in Dutch, doe maar normaal, dan doe je al gek genoeg. Which roughly translates as just act normal, that's crazy enough already. The Dutch are productive, punctual and efficient at work, but for a good reason. We work hard, but we don't want to waste time, because life is about more than work. Being present for your family, enjoying hobbies, playing sports, traveling or going to museums are all important too. The Netherlands is home to over 600 museums. One thing I love is that for just €75 you can get a museumjaarkaart. This card gives you unlimited access to most museums in the country, including the Rijksmuseum, Van Gogh Museum and the Anne Frank House. A single ticket to one of these museums can cost between 20 and €25. So the museumjaarkaart is a no-brainer if you love art, history, science and culture. I wish every country offered something like this. So your time outside of work is yours to enjoy as you please, and that includes taking a holiday. In the Netherlands, if you have a full-time job, you're legally entitled to 20 paid vacation days, though most employers offer around 25 and some even more, and you're encouraged to use them. On top of that, employees receive a holiday allowance, which is legally required. That's right. By law, Dutch employers need to financially contribute to your holidays. This contribution amounts to 8% of your gross annual salary and is paid out in May. So in that month, a Dutch employee will receive almost double their gross monthly salary. I didn't think much of it when I was employed in the Netherlands. I just took it for granted. But now that I live abroad and no longer have it, I really miss having that benefit. So how can you adopt a work-to-live mindset instead of live-to-work? You can start by setting clear boundaries between work and your personal life. With remote work and constant access through emails and smartphones, it's easy for work to spill into your personal time. If you're employed and entitled to holidays, use them. Take the time to relax and recharge. And during your free time, do something that rejuvenates you. Preventing burnout isn't just about reducing your work hours, it's also about clearing your mind when you're off the clock. Spending hours scrolling through social media won't help you relax. Instead, take up a hobby, exercise, try a new recipe, or have a meaningful conversation with a loved one. For more inspiration, you might want to check out my video 5 Easy Dutch Habits for a Happier, Healthier Life, in which I explore Dutch habits like niksen, uitwaaien, and gezelligheid. So thanks for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one. Bye!